Yeah, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Lincoln City's pre-match show. It's Match Day Live. First of all, Happy New Year to you all, wherever you're watching the show and the subsequent match from this afternoon. Fingers crossed it's a better year for all of us off the pitch, at least. On it, I guess it's a case of more the same, isn't it? A win this afternoon would take the Imps 6 points clear at the top of the League One table, with no Portsmouth in action this afternoon. All set for an interesting afternoon, isn't it? The Imps away at Wimbledon today. You may have seen that Wimbledon put a statement on Twitter last night. Now, the statement I will read to you just to get that out there before we start the show. They said, "We have received confirmation from the AFL that tomorrow's game with Lincoln City will go ahead. The club had sought permission to postpone the game following positive tests and self-isolation instructions at both clubs, but were instructed to proceed with the match by the EFL." So that is what Wimbledon have been saying. I'll be getting Gary Hutchinson's thoughts on that very shortly. Before that, of course, best wishes go to both Steve Crowdson, the Lincoln City goalkeeper coach, and of course the first team manager, Michael Appleton, both testing positive for COVID-19 this week. Best wishes in their recovery. We'll be hearing from Michael very shortly as well. Let's bring Gary Hutchinson into the action now. And Gary, good to see you. Happy New Year to you, first of all.
Happy New Year to you as well, Sam.
Your thoughts, first of all, on the Wimbledon statement?
It's interesting. When I first read it, I was actually horrified the game was going ahead, and I think that's probably a result of the current climate around the whole country. You know, everybody's frightened. I can understand why they would want it cancelled. I could certainly understand why there's a fear. I think on the flip side, I have heard that it's hard to transmit in the open air in a sports environment. There will be a reason the AFL have chosen not to postpone this game. They don't make these choices willy-nilly. They don't look at the team and think, "Oh, it's Wimbledon, they can play." But it's just the current climate of fear that we live in, isn't it? That as soon as you hear the words COVID-19, it brings the pandemic right back home again.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. I guess it's one of those, isn't it? When talking about it as well, we have to be really careful because there is that element of being able to play football on the pitch. We've seen Premier League football. We've seen football across the world go ahead safely over the past few months as well. But COVID is real. We know it's happening, and we know that Wimbledon players are self-isolating as well. But from a footballing point of view, Gary, I mean, it's a huge opportunity, isn't it, for Lincoln City here to go 6 points clear at the top of the table, a team in form. And, if we're being completely brutal about it, they're playing against a depleted squad. So it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, it is. I think at last check, Hull and Sunderland are possibly still in action out of the top six, but certainly a lot of the top 10 rather, but a lot of the other teams are missing. It is sadly an opportunity, and I certainly wouldn't want to sit here and sound mercenary and say that because nobody wants to take advantage of a situation such as COVID. And I think before we saw the Wimbledon statement, Lincoln City fans might have been thinking, well, hang on, our manager can't be in the dugout. COVID has touched Lincoln City. Should the game be played? And I've seen lots of calls on social media to cancel the game. My voice was one of them first thing this morning. But obviously, like any responsible pundit, I kind of did a bit of digging and a bit of research. And there are several angles from which Lincoln City supporters might actually feel that it is a good opportunity, as long as it's safe. But it's a very fine tightrope that we walk, I think, sort of making that claim as well with such a delicate situation.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. And our best wishes go to everyone at Wimbledon as well, who's self-isolating as well from COVID-19 or being around people that are suffering with COVID-19 at the moment. Of course, one of those men suffering a little bit closer to home is Michael Appleton. He spoke to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Michael Horton yesterday and told him a little bit about the symptoms that he's been suffering. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Still got a little bit of back and chest pain. Which, is a little bit uncomfortable and find it hard to get comfortable when you try to sort of sleep and rest. But, I had a couple of rough days where I felt like I'd been beaten up a little bit. But hopefully, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm on the mend a little bit.
Must be concerning when you realise what was going on, both for you and for your family.
Yeah, it is, obviously, because the last thing you want, you've got a 14-week-old young son, and obviously myself, my wife and him, and yeah, the first concern was just hoping and praying that they don't get any symptoms. And yeah, up to this time, like none of them have got any symptoms, which is is good, and I just hope that remains the same.
And I guess that's also now you're having to live slightly separated, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult when you're under the same roof, but obviously, you try and sort of do it as best you possibly can. And yeah, I've heard like different, stories of people who've been under the same roof and, continue to get tested through a 10-day period, and one partner positive for the whole 10 days, or whatever it takes, and then like the other partner being negative. So it works in sort of weird ways. COVID, as I think everyone sort of found out over the last 10 months or so. But yeah, we're just trying to stay apart as much as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, it can be difficult when you're under the same roof.
And do you feel that you're on the way to recovery? I mean, obviously, you're no medical expert on this, but compared to how you felt a few days ago, are you feeling better?
Yes and no. I think it's one of them. It's different. It's weird because at first, obviously, it was a lot of, headache, fever, chills, and then obviously feeling achy. Now it's more of just feeling, like say, a bit of chest and back pain. It's almost like as if someone's putting pressure, standing on your chest or your back a little bit. So I know I have to be a little bit cautious in terms of making sure that if I have any issues breathing and stuff like that, then obviously I'm gonna have to react to it. But as it stands at this minute, I've just got to cope with the uncomfortable feeling that it gives me at this moment in time.
Yeah, Gary, I mean, it really brings it home, doesn't it? When you hear someone that we follow every week as well, we know someone like Michael is still very young, very fit, as imagine looks after himself, but you hear him describing some of the symptoms there. I said it before, it brings it home, but it also shows just how brutal this can be.
Yeah, definitely. I think you heard it there in his voice and his demeanour that it wasn't the same Michael that we're used to in the press conferences. And again, I think it helps even humanise people that to some degree we see as our manager or our players, and sometimes perhaps don't consider them as people. He says there he's got a 14-week-old son, he's got his wife, and they're having to try and stay apart as much as possible. So it's having a huge impact on his life, as it is many people's lives across the country. And at the same time, he's now having to juggle managing a crucial League One promotion clash as well. I found it interesting when he said that it felt like he'd been beaten up, because I wouldn't imagine, looking at the size of Michael Appleton, that's a feeling he's had very often at all.
Yeah. Absolutely. David Kerslake then will be in charge this afternoon, Gary. A very experienced manager, a very experienced assistant manager, very experienced former Premier League player as well, made around about 35 appearances for Spurs, as well as playing for QPR as well, amongst other teams. What can we expect from him this afternoon? Will he be quite a vocal coach on the touchline, will David Kerslake, Gary, or will he sort of take a step back, take instructions from Michael and try and relay it that way?
It's going to be interesting. I would imagine that he'll have the same level of vocalness, if that's a word, as he does usually on a match day. I wouldn't expect an assistant manager to change his position all that much. He was caretaker manager at Cardiff before Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went in there. After he'd been assistant to Malky Mackay. So we're talking about a man here who is used to football. He's used to being around the dugout. He's earned promotions as assistant manager at Northampton, at Nottingham Forest. As I've said, he was at Cardiff City as well. So he's used to managing players. And I think that with the way that we approach games, it's very structured. Everybody knows their roles. Then we're going to be looking for a degree of continuity here. And I think it's going to be slightly different to when we've seen assistant managers take over after a manager has left, because Michael is still very much involved in this. With video link and modern technology, it's highly likely he will give some form of team talk. So David Kerslake is going to need, he's basically just going to be looking, I think, at continuity. I'm sure he'll be vocal. Steve Crowdston appears very vocal on the bench as well, so we are missing two voices. So it's going to be interesting to see if Liam Bridcutt plays a role today. If he's fit, then brilliant, because he'll be eyes and ears on the pitch. If not, I would imagine he will play quite a significant role in the dugout as well. But Lincoln fans don't know a lot about David Kerslake. He played in the same Spurs team as Jurgen Klinsmann. We're talking about a really experienced man. I think we're in safe hands.
Yeah, definitely, Gary. David Kerslake taking charge. Michael Appleton will be watching from home on iFollow. Best wishes, of course, to Michael and to Steve Crowdson as well. I haven't mentioned you watching at home yet. Do get your questions and comments in. I want to know where you're watching the show from this afternoon, what you think the score's going to be, and your scorer predictions too. I'll do my best to read them out throughout the remainder of the show. Team news for you, as ever, live at 2:00 this afternoon as well. Gary, let's now have a look back at the game last week. Burton Albion. What a brilliant win for the Imps, Gary, and it got off to a fine start. What a ball from James Jones.
That pass and that move, if it happens in the Premier League, would be shown for years. That is a phenomenal pass from James Jones. And off camera, Anthony Scully, little drop of the shoulder, loses Colin Daniel like he's not there. I mean, that's an underrated goal because of where the finish is from, relatively close range. Look, I mean, we went out all guns blazing. 2 games in a row, we needed to score early. 2 games in a row, we scored early and subsequently dominated. And there is an argument that the 2 games that we lost, Sunderland and Shrewsbury, had we done what we did against Northampton and Burton, were games we should have won. Once we got a foothold in this game, though, there was only ever one winner.
It's the movement, isn't it, Gary? It's the runs off the ball, which I find so brilliant. We saw a little dummy there from one of the players. It's just that movement, isn't it? That seems different from maybe League Two and, of course, National League football. You don't get it there. You do get it at the top of League One. And it's our squad, our team, our players that are providing that.
100%. I think we've seen it all season long. It's the movement, it's the little flicks. I mean, that is excellent movement, even from Johnson, not in a kind of a silky skill dummy way, but just he's alive, he's aware, he's on his player. And I think we saw a dummy in the Northampton game that led, was it from maybe McGrandles, was it the Rochdale game? But we've seen it in the area time and again. It just shows that there is a group of players who are well drilled. They understand each other as well, because for a dummy to come off, and we'll just gloss over that, but for a dummy to come off, you have to know where your teammate's going to be. Otherwise, it looks bad. So I think going forward, we've looked good. There are still the odd mistakes at the back. But again, Michael's always said this is a work in progress, and what phenomenal work in progress it is.
Yeah, and this was just an excellent movement as well. Yes, you get that bit of luck, but you only get it when you make that luck. A lovely way to round off the scoring, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you don't have a shot, you don't score. And there was lots of criticism earlier in the season. We were trying to pass the ball in the net. So if you're having speculative shots, yes, you do get the odd deflection here or there. They go against you as well. That's football. But I'm sure that the players feel much more confident when they've got a goals lead. And I think that's why when we score one, we then go on and tend to do relatively well, because the players are then not afraid to miss. So 2 big wins, particularly the Burton one against the team that are bottom, will really hopefully give the boys some confidence.
Just on the Monsma mistake that I know you said we'll gloss over, if we just do go back to that though, Gary, in one sense, there's nothing wrong with doing it when you're playing like that, when you're leading by that sort of scoreline. I mean, there was no chance really that Burton were going to get back into the game. And, we've said it before, I'll say it again, we want to see our players attempting to play it out from the back, because 9 times out of 10 this season, it has worked.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think when it comes from playing out from the back, that's a byproduct of the system, and it will occasionally result in an error or a slip. And I think we saw it against Northampton, possibly. I can't remember the other game. No, Shrewsbury, wasn't it? Yeah. Unfortunately, that mistake actually wasn't from playing out from the back. That's a miscommunication. So they'll learn from that. And you would much rather see that sort of miscommunication when you're 4-0 up and you can go, well, we haven't got a clean sheet. If that's the worst thing that comes out of the 5-1 victories, that you haven't got the clean sheet, but you've got a learning mechanism there, then fantastic. I'd rather he makes the mistakes there. Ultimately, I'd rather we don't make mistakes at all, but we're still talking about human beings, and it happens, and Lewis Monsma will be stronger hopefully for it.
Let's get some of your comments then. Ramalinda, I hope I pronounced that right, says, thanks for giving us this live update. Happy New Year, Lincoln City Football Club. From your fan in Montreal, I'm really excited to see what you'll accomplish this year. Go the Imps. Great to hear from you. Dan Lambert says, Happy New Year, lads. I've got a question for Gary. Being at the top of the league now, do you think that we can go all the way to automatic promotion? He's put you right on the spot, Gary. I know you like that.
Yes, I love it. Thanks, Daniel. No, seriously, yes. Why can't we? If you're top of the league after 18, 19 games, there's no reason why you can't be top of the league after 46 games. It will take a massive effort. I was going to say a word there that I can't pronounce. It would take a huge effort, I think, on our behalf. The next month is going to be crucial with, who can we bring in, how can we strengthen, what do our rivals do? But the crucial thing, and this kind of goes all the way back to the top of the show, is putting points on the board. So, okay, we seize on an opportunity today. Potentially, it's a game where you think, well, we could go 6 points clear, depending on other results. And even if you've got 2 games played, to play 2 more games than your rivals, points on the board are hugely important. So there's no reason why we can't. I'm not saying that we will, but we're definitely promotion contenders. There's no doubt about that at all.
Let's have a look at some of the Goal of the Month nominations then. Of course, we're into January now, but the Imps scored plenty in December, didn't they? So there was plenty to pick from. These were the nominations, then we'll show you the winner after. Yeah, some fine goals to pick from, weren't there? Gary, which one did you pick and why?
Well, I'm going to go against what I said a minute ago because I should be picking the Remy Howarth one. Do you know what? I really liked James Jones against Rochdale. I love the little dummy and the cross as well. So either of those. I strongly suspect that we're about to see a replay of Lewis Monsma's drive, though, for some reason.
Okay, well, on that note, let's have a look at the goal that won it then, the December Goal of the Month, as voted for by you, the fans at home. This was it. I think that's the fine camera angle. Excellent work from the some of the University of Lincoln students that have been helping out the club recently. Filmed that brilliantly, filmed it to perfection, and the free kick was to perfection as well. Maybe, Gary, I guess it was the moment, wasn't it, in that? Because if that free kick doesn't go in, perhaps Lincoln go and lose that game against Wigan. They find themselves maybe 4th or 5th in the table, and we're not here talking about going 6 points clear at the top. Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I mentioned 3 goals and it was the 4th one that got picked purely goes to show the quality of all of the goals from December. It was a really good month for us. That was a big game, beating Wigan, and having gone 1-0 down as well, we showed an awful lot of character to bounce back. And George Grant loves a free kick. It was a great moment. We are scoring some really nice goals, and we're scoring different goals as well, team goals, individual goals. That's something maybe a month ago we weren't actually able to say. So I think that we are seeing a steady evolution of the team, steady progression, as Michael keeps predicting. Great to hear from you guys at home. Terence Ford says another high-scoring winning game would be ace. When the play link-up work wins and we score from it, the play looks amazing. Paul Johnson says, watching from Australia all the way. Imps, you can do it, lads. Great season so far. Keep up the positives. For a full host of reasons, I'm jealous of you watching from Australia, Paul. I'm also jealous of Ben Clifford, who says he sat in the hot tub in Cyprus listening to the boys. Up the Imps, another 4-0 win for me. Well, Ben, I can report live from Lincoln that it is now officially snowing outside. That's coming from the centre of Lincoln, but very jealous of you being in Cyprus and Paul in Australia as well. Gary, in terms of today's team, what are you expecting from Michael Appleton's or David Kerslake's starting 11?
Very little difference, I think, when you've scored 9 goals in 2 games.
Imagine put the word difference in there, not just very little.
Very little difference. I don't see many changes. I think with a relatively small squad, it will depend entirely on whether any of the injured players are coming back. I did hear in one of the interviews that Liam Bridcut was touch or go. If he's fit, he plays. Other than that, very, very little change. I mean, how do you improve on 9 goals in 2 games? And it could be a very, very similar game in that Wimbledon haven't had a brilliant run of form. I think it's 1 point from their last 5 matches in the league. So it is, unfortunately, to a degree, an opportunity. We've been playing well. The players that have been given their chance, like Anthony Scully, have taken their chances. So, business as usual, let's hope.
In terms of the transfer window then, Gary, I know you did an article about some potential Lincoln City signings, or certainly positions that you'd like to see strengthened. Just elaborate on that a little bit. What are you expecting this January transfer window? Because we know that Michael has said that he is looking to sort of bolster the squad where he can.
Yeah, this is actually a crucial transfer window because it's going to show another side of Michael Appleton and the club's transfer policy. The last 2 windows have been very, very much about, I'll use the word again, evolution. Have been about change. It's about new for old. This is the first transfer window Michael's going to have where actually he's got all his own players in place and it's tweaking. And that's going to be really crucial. It's how do you keep the momentum going, bringing in certain people, but not then nudging out some of the other players. The players I'm thinking about here are Zach Elbouzedi, brilliant against Shrewsbury, Remy Howarth, experiencing a resurgence. How do you keep those players happy, but arguably bring people in and around their positions? I envisage certainly another loan deal. I think that we've got space for another loan player. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't get a youngster from a higher level who plays up front in an attacking area, because look how much success we've had with Brennan Johnson. I think whether Brennan stays or goes is irrelevant. I think Michael will be looking for Brennan Johnson Part 2, Mark 2, to kind of add what Brennan has on the other flank as well. Because with Anthony Scully, as we've spoken before, he's a player that cuts in, plays in the 10. But another player with speed, pace and energy like Brennan Johnson would be interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't then look at somebody maybe versatile around a holding midfield role. Liam Bridcut's injury record, whilst not concerning as such, is something that I think the manager might bear in mind. And if Liam is injured, Conor McGrandles can play there, but with Conor been out recently as well, we've obviously taken George Grant out of the attacking picture. Be really interesting maybe to see somebody come in that role, but it would potentially be as cover. I don't see wholesale changes. I think any major incomings will be as a result of any major outgoings, and I think that we all hope that won't happen.
The snow is falling thick and fast in Lincoln. I can certainly report that to those watching from far and wide. Let's now hear from Michael Appleton. These are his pre-match thoughts. We obviously heard him speaking to Michael Horton before regarding his recent COVID-19 positive test, but this is him talking football.
It's going to be a difficult game for the lads, and even though Wimbledon have lost 4 of the last 5 games, you look at the games, which I have done, and I've been able to do because I've not been able to do much else. They've played well in the games and they've been in the games, and you've only got to look to the Oxford game last week where they actually dominated for long spells in terms of the amount of chances that they had and the quality of the chances they had. And I think it said everything about their performance on the day that Oxford's goalkeeper Jack Stevens got the man of the match. So we're aware that it's going to be a difficult game, but ultimately at the same time, they have lost 4 out of 5 for a reason, and we've got to make sure that we use that to our advantage and make sure we press on their weaknesses and continue the vein of form that we've shown over the last few games.
What are Liam Bridcut's chances of being involved tomorrow?
Yeah, well, he's trained for the last probably 4 or 5 days now, so he's got a great chance. I've not spoke to anyone. I'm due to speak to the staff after we've had this call now, but I've not spoke to see if anything, if there was any issues this morning in training. But no one's been in touch, so I'm guessing everything was fine this morning before they left to go to Wimbledon. So if that's the case, then he'll have a great chance of being involved tomorrow.
And Conor McGrandle's still a week or 2 away?
Yeah, he's going to be probably mid-Jan. before he's involved, maybe towards the end of Jan. But he had a scan the other day, and the scan pretty much backed up what the medical staff thought it was, so that was a good thing.
And finally, the perennial January question: anything imminent on the transfer front?
We're reasonably confident that you might get something, or we might get some good news on Monday or Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday then. Straight to the point from Michael Appleton, wasn't it, Gary, on that? But it does seem that things could pick up pace on the transfer window front. It's not to be expected, perhaps, that we're waiting right until the deadline day to see what sort of deals can be made.
Yeah, definitely. The recruitment team will have a plan in place that will almost certainly involve bringing in somebody who can play in the centre forward role, I think, to back up Tom Hopper, or certainly in an attacking role. Doesn't surprise me that we've got something tied up relatively early either. There's lots of games in January. It makes no sense to wait until the end of the month if you can do business early. I think I saw Shrewsbury have already brought 2 players in. So, yeah, no surprises there whatsoever. Promising news, I think, certainly there on Liam Bridcut as well, which remains to be seen in the next few minutes. The sooner we get the injured players back, as well as the new signings, the sooner we can just keep picking up points.
Question for you coming in from Stuart Wells, Gary. He says, if fit, do you think that Callum Morton gets into the starting 11? Of course, Callum Morton out injured at the moment. No official line on when he'll be back, but the word is that it could be around February time. Looked really impressive in the fleeting moments that he played for the Imps. We know he's a very good player, had an excellent season last season as well. Where do you think he would fit in if he was back fit now, or where he could possibly be fit in if he comes back to the Imps and tries to get back into that starting 11?
Right now, if he's fit, he fits in on the bench next to David Kerslake, because I don't take Tom Hopper out the side. And Tom has an awful lot of criticism. I'm going to talk about him in the second part of the show. But I wouldn't be as rude to Tom as to say Callum walked straight into the starting 11. What he adds is competition for places. He adds flexibility in terms of tactics and approach. He could play in a kind of very advanced role behind Tom Hopper in a 4-4-2. So he brings options. He brings another versatility, another angle. But for me, he doesn't walk into the starting 11 at all.
I thought you meant you wanted to see him take up a coaching role alongside David Kerslake there, Gary. I was wondering where you were going to go with that one. Andy Coles says, really enjoyed the show. I'm an Imps fan listening from work in Cumbria. Great to hear from you. And Paul Johnson's replied as well. He says it's an English summer in Sydney, rain and overcast all week so far. Who else have we got just before we go to the team news live at 2:00? Do get your thoughts in. We'll be giving you the team news in around about 20 seconds time. In the meantime, let us know who you'd like to see in the starting 11, or react to that starting 11 as well. I'll do my best to put those questions to Gary Hutchinson. It is now 2:00, so this is Lincoln City's starting 11 to face Wimbledon. And that man, Liam Bridcut, does come back into the side. He captains the team to face Wimbledon at Plough Lane this afternoon. Michael Appleton making one change to the team that beat Burton Albion this time last week. The team in full then is Alex Palmer in goal. TJ Omer, Lewis Monsmer, Joe Walsh and Teo Eden make up the familiar back four. The aforementioned Liam Bridcut captains the side this afternoon, returning to it from injury. He is alongside George Grant and James Jones. It is then Anthony Scully, Brennan Johnson and Tom Hopper. The bench consists of Long, Melbourne, Jackson, Archibald, Howarth, Gotts and El-Bazedi. So your starting 11 once more is Palmer, Ioma, Monsmer, Walsh, Eden, Bridcut, Grant, Jones, Scully, Johnson and Hopper. Gary, the top line from that then is, of course, Liam Bridcut back in the side. You mentioned that it would be a huge boost to have him back. Just tell us why.
Twofold. First of all, because Liam Bridcut's an excellent footballer. He'll sit in front of the back four. He'll dictate play. He helps provide a link when we're playing out from the back. Hugely experienced, and with Michael Appleton not at the game as well, having a leader on the field, and that's no disrespect to anybody else, but having a player like Liam Bridcut who's so well respected on the field is massive. And I also get the impression that Bridcut, not just being a bridge between defence and kind of midfield and attack, is also a bridge between management and players as well. So probably more important today than at any other time. It also frees up George Grant. We love to see George Grant in a more advanced role. He has the keys to unlock any defence. Not quite as effective as an attacking force when he's playing that kind of deeper midfield role. He's playing further forward today, so that again adds to our options going forward.
That point you raised there about the fact that Liam Bridcut adds something from a vocal point of view is really interesting, Gary, especially knowing what we know about Michael being at home this afternoon. Really interesting on Matchday Live, wasn't it, to interview Liam last week just before he was about to go and take the warm-up as well. It just bodes well, doesn't it? Having a player of his age, he's not exactly 37, 38, is he? He's still essentially in the prime of his career, yet he wants to be involved. He travelled down to Plymouth when he wasn't involved a few weeks ago. He's taking the warm-up. He's back in the starting 11 today. He's just a great player to have in the squad, isn't he?
Yeah. The more I hear about Liam Bridcut off the field, the more I like. He's regularly seen at under-18 games. He stays with Robbie Gotts once or twice a week when regulations allow, to help him settle and remain happy as he's in a house on his own. He's a natural leader. He's a very charismatic man, I find, as well. He speaks very, very well. He's had a fantastic career behind him. When you talk about some of the players and some of the teams that he's played with, he's played under John Terry, he's been at Chelsea, he's been at Sunderland, he's been at Leeds. He commands respect. It's hugely important, but we're not talking here about a journeyman who's washed up in the final weeks or final years of his career to kind of coast. He's got one eye on the next stage. Yes, he's clearly wanting to go into coaching. He clearly wants to go into management, but he's also still a very, very effective footballer, highly coveted at League One. In my opinion, he walks into any League One team at this moment in time. There isn't a single side that would take Liam Bridcut and say, well, he wouldn't get in our 11 or he wouldn't get in our 16. So he was the big summer signing, the jewel in the crown. I still don't think we've seen the best of him on the field either, which again plays into that whole kind of evolution and progression thread. So absolutely delighted to see him back in the side today.
Yeah, so Liam Bridcut back in the side. Eagle-eyed viewers will have noted no Harry Anderson in today's squad. Plenty of comments coming in asking why Harry's not involved this afternoon. The reason is that he's shown a symptom of COVID-19, so he's self-isolating. That is the official reason as to why Harry Anderson is not involved this afternoon. Gary, just on that, he'll be a miss, won't he? I know he hasn't started the past few games. Anthony Scully has sort of played in that position and played really well. But I've said it before, when you have a player like Harry Anderson, who has played so well over the years for the Imps, but so well this season as well, to be able to bring him on around the hour mark, around the 70-minute mark, you can see the boost that it gives the squad every single time. It changes the dynamic. We're going to miss that today, aren't we?
Yes, we are, absolutely. Harry, key member of the squad, one of the strongest players, I thought, over the first 2 months of the season. People say vastly improved. I think that would be harsh on him last season. I think he's always been a key player for us. Huge miss, without a doubt. Probably wouldn't have started today. So, as you say, it is from the bench. And it does potentially offer up opportunity for one of the other players to come on, whether a Zach Elbazedi or a Theo Archibald could flip to the other wing if need be. Sometimes Harry comes on at right back, but we've got Robbie Gotts who can play there. So again, the recruitment policy through the summer and the early kind of stages of autumn when we could loan players is still bearing fruit, in that we have lost a player who is widely regarded as one of our key performers, but we can probably absorb that loss.
Let's hear from James Jones now. He gave his pre-match press conference yesterday. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think the belief's definitely there, and the group that we've got, a lot of good lads here all want to work hard and want to be successful. So, if we keep doing what we're doing and don't get carried away, then why not?
Are you someone who does take note of the league table?
I mean, you try not to, but it's hard not to. It's hard not to look at what's going on around us. I mean, we have our targets. We know what we have to get, in each game, in each block of games. But it's hard not to have a little look every now and again.
And do you think that teams will maybe start to take Lincoln a little more seriously? Because there's some teams who, after a month or two, fall away after a great start. But for yourselves, you've remained up there throughout.
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know what other teams are thinking of us, but you'd like to think that they're taking us seriously now. But it's up to us to make sure that we keep doing what we're doing and don't be one of those teams that falls away after a great start.
And do you feel like you've got quite a grounded bunch in the dressing room as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said before on loads of interviews, it's a good group of lads. Everyone's, honest, works hard, knows what they have to do, and are hungry. So there's no reason why we can't keep doing what we're doing.
AFC Wimbledon this weekend, a new ground as well. I know some fans like to tick off the 92 grounds and go and visit them. Is it the same for players sometimes? Do you like to tick off new grounds and play at new places?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, I suppose. I've not been there myself, so yeah, it'd be a new experience for me. So hopefully get a win there.
Yeah, hopefully get a win there. Indeed, James Jones speaking to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Rob Makepeace. Gary, of course, the Wimbledon team news is in as well. Just after 2:00, Ollie Palmer and Alex Woodyard both in the starting 11. Obvious question, I guess, but what can we expect from them this afternoon? I'll start with Alex Woodyard, of course, a bit of a club legend. Maybe that's expanding it too much, but certainly for what he did for the club back in 16-17, he put in some hell of a performances, didn't he?
Yeah, you will not hear a bad word come out of my mouth about Alex Woodyard, and I know there are some question marks over the way that he departed the team. He was a driving force. He was he was the heartbeat of the side for the 2016-17. He was Player of the Year. He was tenacious. He was industrious. Really, really neat footballer. I think when we came into the league, he always looked like he was destined to go higher. I remember him scoring 2 goals against Carlisle and then having a little bit of a bottom lip out when he didn't get the penalty to make it a hat-trick. But I thought he had a great season for us again. Took us to the playoffs, helped us win the EFL trophy, and then obviously departed for what looked like a good move at the time. We're now above the team he moved to, and we're above the team that he plays for. But he's a player who I could see fitting into a Michael Appleton side, certainly in the Liam Bridgecut role. Perhaps not quite as flashy with his passes, but a workhorse and an underrated workhorse at that.
Ollie Palmer, of course, a man who scored a few goals for the Imps as well, Gary. He'd love to score against his old side today, wouldn't he?
Yeah, wouldn't he just? Because that's why Ollie Palmer managed to get up for those games, didn't he? Whenever we played Mansfield, he always liked a goal. I have quite differing views on Ollie Palmer. I've made those quite clear. He wasn't a player that I particularly gelled with in terms of personality. He had a knack of popping up and scoring goals. Let's not forget that goal there. He's run off with his ears cupped, resulted in Luke Waterfall being sent off. I think with Ollie Palmer, the thing is, Ollie Palmer never knew what he was going to do, and so it made him really hard to play against, because how can anybody else know? I won't forget the comments he made on social media about not getting a starting place and more chance of folding crisps. He wasn't a character that I was a huge fan of, but we will need to be careful of him today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, Gary, isn't it? He's one of those players that when he knows a big game is on the horizon or a game against one of his old sides, he lifts it, doesn't he? He finds ways. I guess some of the Lincoln City players, maybe Harry Anderson, will have informed people that won't have played with Ollie Palmer that, be wary of this man. But of course, the beauty of it now, as opposed to maybe even 6 or 7 years ago, is that you're able to watch every game back. You're able to see the stats, and the Imps and Michael Appleton and David Kerslake will be prepared for him, won't they?
Yes, there will be. He's a big unit. He should be an aerial threat. I think for his first 6 months at Lincoln, he was the only 6'4" player I had seen who couldn't head a football. But I think he developed that. He had a really good spell at Crawley, but we neutralised him whenever we played Crawley. I think he had one opportunity in our two meetings whilst he was a player there, and he cut a forlorn figure when we hammered them 3-0 at their place. At the end of our title winning season. The thing is, as I've said, you don't quite know what you're going to get with Ollie Palmer. But if they're using him as a target man, the ball will maybe stick to him. But he was also quite a selfish striker. And I think sometimes that's brilliant, and it might work for Wimbledon. But when Matt Green was on a goal drought, for me, a lot of that was down to the fact that his partner wasn't playing the passes and was quite greedy. So I'm saying all these things against him. Unfortunately, my curse is that he will now go and score today, because it always seems to happen.
Don't say it. Let's talk about Wimbledon overall then as a club, Gary, because of course they've got this brilliant new stadium. It's great to see, isn't it? I mean, the club played them back in 2017 in the FA Cup. You went to that game, didn't you? What were your memories of the stadium previously? Because they were part of the Chelsea setup, weren't they?
Yes, they were. So they played at Kings Meadow, which was one time the home of Kingstonian, and then they shared it. I think it was Chelsea's training ground, might have been the Chelsea ladies' ground as well. I remember going there. I mean, facilities were sparse. There was nowhere for a pre-match refreshment, so to speak. And lots of the branding was Chelsea branding around the ground. They felt nomadic, and this isn't a criticism of Wimbledon, because they're a proud club, and they're a club. They were for a while kind of my second team. When we were out of the Football League, they were the team I was looking at, because their story is phenomenal. It's a fairy tale, but they were still nomadic. How they've survived at this level is impressive. It's kind of beyond me. I thought that they would struggle, and they've been here now for ever since we got back. I think in the Football League, I think they were promoted the same season. But to go to Plough Lane, there's a lot of romance around the Wimbledon story. And let's not forget the old Wimbledon, and they'll claim it's their Wimbledon. I'm not getting into that. But, they got where they did on grit, determination, fight, sometimes quite underhand tactics. But it was a fantastic story, that rise from non-league to winning the FA Cup. It was the first FA Cup final, the second FA Cup final I remember sitting and watching. And you just got behind it. So the fact that they're back at Plough Lane, the fact they're back where they belong, the fact they've managed to stay in this division, and obviously are competing on equal terms with MK Dons, it's fantastic. They're a team. They're the second team I look out for in League One. I wish them all the best, apart from today and the next time we play them.
I think what I like about the Wimbledon story, or the AFC Wimbledon story, is that they provide hope to any club that unfortunately suffers financially or suffers liquidation. I don't want to speak too soon, but with COVID-19, there is, of course, the stark reality that a few more clubs are going to go out of business. And when they do, they'll be looking at the AFC Wimbledon model, going, this is how we do it. This is how it's done. And this is the hope that something like that story can provide. And I guess that is one of the beauties of football, isn't it? There are plenty of great things about football, but one of those is knowing that you can go right to the very bottom. Not only can you come back, but you can come back with a vengeance as well. And that's what AFC Wimbledon have done.
Absolutely, 100%. They do provide inspiration to supporters who want to start a Phoenix club, maybe to the likes of, the Bury supporters and teams like that. And it's actually surprising that Lincoln City fans can buy into it so well, because let's not forget, they replaced us in the Football League. We went out in 2010-11 and they came up. But it is a fairy tale, and I think football inspires kind of stories of the little man succeeding. We all love an underdog. We loved being the underdog in 2016-17 in the FA Cup. We love a positive story. And that's exactly what Wimbledon deliver. And I think this is, it's been a long a kind of a long story. It's had lots of narrative. MK Dons were painted as the villains. And again, I'm not going to get involved in that, but every good story has an antagonist and a protagonist. And I think Wimbledon are, they just have so much history. And I think probably it's even more pertinent that they'd had the run beforehand. So they'd come from non-league to the top flight and won the FA Cup beforehand, had it snatched away, and have now fought back again. So yes, inspirational, and certainly, could be the subject of a Hollywood movie, I would imagine, at some point.
Kevin Green says, great to have Bridcut back, but shame about Harry. Will Grant still be an imp at the end of the month? I won't put that one to Gary, because we have chatted about George Grant and the contract situation on previous Matchday lives. So, of course, we certainly hope that George Grant will be an imp by the end of the month. Paul Johnson says, Bridcut back in, loving the show. Can't wait to watch this one from Oz and the impact that Liam will have on the pitch. We're going to be speaking to a League One expert, Ben Knappman, about the other games involved. Of course, it's not a full set of fixtures with everything going on in the world at the moment, but there are big fixtures taking place in League One. We'll be speaking to Ben Knappman very shortly. In the meantime, let me take you back through the Lincoln City starting 11, and then we'll chat about the substitutes with Gary. So this is the starting 11 for the Imps. Alex Palmer in goal. Familiar back four: TJ Omer, Lewis Monsma, Joe Walsh and Teo Eden. Liam Bridcut is the captain, back in the side this afternoon alongside George Grant, James Jones, Anthony Scully, Brennan Johnson and Tom Hopper. The bench is Long, Melbourne, Jackson, Archibald, Howarth, Gotts and El Bazedi. And Gary, I want to ask you about those three last players on the substitutes bench. I'll start with Remy Howarth. Yes, technically he drops to the bench this afternoon, but he's looked really good in the last few games that he started for the Imps, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's put he's put in good work. He's industrious in the middle of the park. He's certainly never left wanting for effort or running. But at the same time, being realistic, he's not going to dislodge James Jones and George Grant from those attacking midfield positions. And when Liam Bridcutt's in, he drops down. And when Conor McGrandles does come back, he probably drops down the pecking order a little more. But I think Remy understands that. I think he's a good professional. We've alluded so many times on this show to him being a great personality as well. So you know that if you bring Remy on, you're going to get hard work, you're going to get running, and he might even have a couple of snapshots at goal. So he's certainly a useful squad player to have.
Trying to work out then whether you were speaking quicker or whether it was the connection was catching up on itself. Either way, sounded great, of course, because Gary Hutchinson's analysis is always on point, but it might just be the connection on that one. Let's bring in Ben Natman. He's part of Cod's Vlogs, which is actually a Fleetwood Town blog, but he's also a League One expert, and we'll be chatting to him now about some of the games that are coming up. Before we do, Ben, I know you've been taking a look at the Wimbledon starting 11 this afternoon. Great to see you. We've chatted a little bit about two former Lincoln players, Ollie Palmer and Alex Woodyard, so I won't ask you about them. We know it's a depleted Wimbledon squad this afternoon. What do you make of their starting 11? Perhaps what's the reaction been from the fans?
Well, I think with Wimbledon, they're always a side that they remind me a bit like a Burnley, like a Burnley version of League Two. So, League One, sorry, but they've got the resources. They don't spend big. They have to go and get players maybe others don't get. But Woodyard, again, as you've mentioned, is a good League One player. I think he had a time at Peterborough as well. Palmer, again, had a good spell at Crawley as well. So they have got a decent squad. And when I looked through it this year, to the whole squad, I thought this squad's probably one of the best they've had in a few years in League One. Obviously, you got Piggott up front. And when you've got a goal scorer in League One, you've got a chance of staying up. And it's a difference sometimes between staying up and finishing mid-table, and the difference between finishing mid-table and in the playoffs. And I see that with Fleetwood, with Paddy Madden. I think you saw that with Peterborough last year with Ivan Toney. So I think it's a decent side. I think it's not the strongest 11 because obviously I think they've got maybe 6 or 7 out, but they're a good side and they'll be okay this season, I think. And it's going to be an interesting game today between Lincoln and AFC Wimbledon, one that I'll be keeping my eye out on.
I love the fact that anyone joining Matchday Live at this very point are probably thinking, are we playing Fleetwood Town? Is this an old Matchday Live? No, we're talking to Ben Natman, who's a Fleetwood Town fan, who's also a League One expert. Gary, interesting what Ben says there about the starting 11. I mean, we look at that, don't we? And we think, yeah, okay, they've got 6 or 7 players out. Imps are at the top of the table. No, we don't think it's going to be an easy game. But Ben rightly saying there, look, don't rule Wimbledon out under any circumstances.
No, 100%. Ben knows what he's talking about. Wimbledon have surprised me a little because, again, when you look at their squad, you think, yeah, they might be all right, but they're probably going to be in and around the bottom 6, 7 or 8. But they do have some really good players. I haven't seen the Wimbledon starting lineup, so I feel a little bit unprepared. But Joe Piggott is a player who's always stood out for me. If Ollie Palmer's starting, I would imagine that Piggott may not be. But, again, he's certainly a player I kept my eye on. I think he was at Maidstone in the National League. He scored goals for fun, and he's one of those that's managed to step up and continue to do that. And as Ben correctly ascertains, if you've got a goal scorer at this division, at this level, if you've got a player you know is going to get 15, 20 goals a season, you're going to be in with a shout of not just staying up, but at least tucking into mid-table, even if the other 10 players are average. Wimbledon's are not, and they're a very good organised unit. They're good at what they do. So, it's definitely going to be a tough game with or without all their first players.
6 League One fixtures this afternoon then, Ben. I'll ask you about Hull City Charlton. That stands out, realistically, as the biggest game in the division, really, this afternoon. What are you expecting of this one? Because Hull have been on a bit of a tricky period, haven't they? Charlton, perhaps there's an argument that they have to an extent as well. They've conceded a few last-minute goals over the last maybe 3 or 4 games as well. What are you expecting from that one? Ben's on mute. I don't know if that's just me that can't hear Ben. Again, I go back to it. It's probably the story of 2020, isn't it? If you watch the fireworks the other day, the thing that probably stood out was the drone saying you're on mute on that one. But hopefully we can go back to Ben. We've lost him all together there. So, Gary, I'll ask you, what are you expecting from Hull City Charlton? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no problem. Look, Charlton are a really good side. We played them at a good time, and then they've strengthened since, but that hasn't actually yet resulted in a push into the top six. And when you imagine how the form of some of the top six teams have been, we've lost probably 4 or 5 going into the run, and they still haven't managed to break in. So I think that it's a reflection on how tough the league is, and it doesn't get any tougher than going away to Hull City. But you flip that back over, and Hull City have lost some games. They're desperate to get back onto the field and get their promotion pushed back on track. There's a lot of expectation there, and I think you've got a clash of 2 levels of expectation. In Charlton, just been taken over. They do, that they think that they're going to progress, but they're perhaps not there at the moment. Hull City fans probably believe that they're punching below their weight. They desperately need to get promoted. Anything outside the top 2 for them is seen as failure. Huge match for both teams there today.
Ben, we've covered Hull City, Charlton there, so I'm going to ask you about Northampton, Sunderland. Sunderland away at Northampton this afternoon, and Sunderland just 1 place below your beloved Fleetwood as well, but they've got 3 games in hand on your side, 6 points off the top of League One, but they've got a couple of games in hand on the Imps as well. Well, 10 points, I should say. What am I saying there? They're 10 points behind the Imps. I do apologise. But what are you making of that one?
Yeah, new manager bounce at Sunderland. Lee Johnson's got in there, and already it seems a better atmosphere. They got a result against Lincoln. I know you won't want me to bring that up, but they seem like under Phil Parkes, I didn't think they were going anywhere. Under Lee Johnson, he's a manager that plays decent football, and he can get you out of League One. And the Parkinson, he's a quick fit, really. He's all right for 6-12 months, and you want him gone. He's like, I put him in the same category as a League One Sam Allardyce, if I'm honest with you. But, it's going to be a good game. That Northampton's struggling. They got a win in the midweek. And sometimes they surprise you. They're better against some decent sides. Only beat us at home. So you got a decent one against Gillingham, who are a good side as well. So you never know. And I do fancy Sunderland 2-0 victory in that one.
Sunderland 2-0 victory. Interesting. Just overall then, Ben, what do you made of League One? It's been of course I'm going to say it's been a really good season, but it's been an intriguing season, rather like the Premier League. A lot of teams that are very bunched close together, whether that's the byproduct of COVID-19, whether that's just the way it's fallen this year, remains to be seen. It's pretty interesting. Of course, your side Fleetwood in with the shout as well. Overall, what are your thoughts going into this part of 2021 and the second part of the League One season?
Well, it's really weird because I feel Fleetwood haven't got going yet, and I know that there's something coming with Fleetwood, and I believe that, and it just feels frustrating that we've not been able to get there for reasons where we've lost or been a game called off, or maybe we've got a point and we've sat back too long. I think Wigan was the point that frustrated me. We were 1-0 up, and then we got a point, but in League One you never know, and the games in hand are going to be crucial this year. And people are talking about Accrington. Yeah, they've got 5 games in hand, but they've got a thin squad. So will they fade away? I think there's maybe 7 or 8 teams. I was doing my League One table prediction. 2 hours it took me to go through the predictions, thinking, where can these go? Where can these go? Where can these go? And as it's on screen now, it's so close between the top 7 and Ipswich outside. They have lost to, Lincoln, Portsmouth, Hull, Doncaster and Charlton this season. So you never know with the big sides. It's whoever can get the wins. And look at Portsmouth, they got a win over Hull. So I think in total, there's not been a side that has gone on a run yet. And Lincoln are that side that have stayed consistent. But the only thing with Lincoln I've seen this season, they've either been very good or they've lost. There's not been really any middle ground with them. And if they can pick that up, I think they'll go up.
And what about your score predictions for the Imps game at Wimbledon this afternoon then, Ben?
2-1 Lincoln. 2-1 Lincoln. I back you.
There you go. You're not about to head on to a Wimbledon Matchday live show and say the same for them, are you?
No. I'm not like a Sol Campbell figure.
Fair enough. Ben, great to have you on the show, and look forward to picking up with you when the Imps play Fleetwood once again this season. Take care.
Top man, see you later.
Cheers, Ben.
It's Ben Natman from Cod's Vlogs, League One expert, but as well, of course, you can follow him for all his Fleetwood Town needs, especially when the Imps prepare to play Fleetwood later on in the season. Gary, let's just have a look to some of Lincoln's upcoming fixtures then, because, look, it's going to be an interesting period, isn't it? We don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks, whether there is going to be this circuit breaker or not. There is no official word on that at the moment, but of course, win this afternoon, you go 6 points clear at the top of the League One table, and then if there is a potential circuit breaker, that gives you 2 weeks to rejuvenate, to recover. It puts things into perspective, but it also puts the Imps into a very good position, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed it does. When you look at that fixture list, there's games there that, in the context of the current season, look tough. Accrington, Shrewsbury, potentially. We'll gloss over Peterborough for now. But in the context of at the beginning of the season, Accrington at home, Shrewsbury away, games that you would perhaps think that we would want to go and take points from. Next Saturday is the big one. Normally, that would be a free hit. You'd go into Peterborough thinking, well, they're where they are. They spent all their money. We'll go and do what we can. But we're above them in the league. We're promotion rivals. It's a huge, huge game. Live on television as well, so it's a big occasion for the club. Looking a little further afield there, I saw Gillingham finally slink into our fixture list as well, and that's always a game that's going to have a little bit of added spice because of who's in the dugout. So it's a tasty looking time for Lincoln City fans. We're in a good position. I don't think there's any pressure on us because I don't think anybody expects us to maintain an automatic promotion challenge. We hope so, but we are punching above our weight, unlike Hull. So we can go into those fixtures full of hope and optimism, just like you should in a new year.
Just going back to the starting 11 then, Gary, a couple of minutes left on the show. Who are you expecting to put in a big performance today? Brennan Johnson was unplayable, wasn't he, the other day? And you have to think that if he gets going once again, like he did away at Northampton, like he did at home to Burton Albion, if he carries on that fine form, you can only expect that he's going to score a couple more goals this afternoon.
Yeah, he's a dangerous player, both from a creative point of view and a goal-scoring point of view. He's quick, he's agile, he's able to beat players. He gets in really good positions as well. So you're always expecting something to happen when he gets on the ball. I think there was some criticism I saw on social media that he had a quiet start to December. But when you're a player as explosive as Brennan is, if you're a 6 out of 10, people are wondering what's wrong. Or a 7 out of 10. But 4 goals in 2 games, he's a real driving force, especially when we're playing with confidence. I've got to say a word about Anthony Scully as well, because I think probably 5-6 weeks ago, I said of Anthony Scully, it's a big time for him. He's got to step up. Sometimes he looks lost out on the wing. Where's his best position? I've never criticised Anthony Scully in terms of his ability, but he just, he had a point to prove. Take your hat off to him. What a way to prove it. I mean, I think he's been superb in the past few weeks. He looks good. He looks positive. The goal he scored against Northampton early doors, that set us up for a good win. He took it really well. I thought he was excellent against Burton as well. And I'm delighted because Anthony Scully is a player who could go far. He's had a great upbringing. When you come out of the West Ham Academy, you know how to play football. They produce great players. So really exciting for him. And finally, I've got to mention Tom Hopper. I said in the first half of the show I was going to mention Tom as well. Look, Tom's goal scoring record as a number 9 may have people scratching their head. Tom's work rate and what he gives to the side has been superb. I'm about to do the Stacey West Player of the Month as voted for by the readers, and it looks to me at the moment like Tom is the Player of the Month. And I think that reflects exactly what he does on and off the ball. If you're under pressure, if you're under the cosh, he holds the ball up. He is a poacher. He can get into positions. But the fact that Brennan Johnson and Anthony Scully were the first 2 picks, and the fact they're doing so well, is because they've got a player who, if they roam, if they cut inside, if they push somewhere else, he'll drop into their position. We've seen him come into the left wing and the right wing as well. So, I'm warming massively to Tom Hopper.
Gary, we're just about out of time. Did you give your score prediction last week?
I said 2-0, but I meant after 10 minutes, not 90.
Are we doing it this week or not? I've realised that I let you decide whether you give your prediction. Now, I think it's for the best.
I feel you're giving me too much power on this show, Sam. You should put me on the spot. I'm going to agree with Ben because then at least if it's wrong, there's 2 of us that are out of order. A 2-1 Lincoln win, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to go for Ollie Palmer for them. And I'm happy to report it's finally started snowing in the Wolds.
There you go, and it stopped here. Would you believe it? Guy, really appreciate your time as ever. Thanks very much, and look forward to hopefully doing Matchday Live with you before the Peterborough game next week. Of course, everything up in the air, as it will be possibly for the next month, maybe even a few months or so. Really appreciate your company on today's Matchday Live. You can get your Match Pass now by going to www.weareimps.com/iFollow. Can the Imps start 2021 with a bang and go 6 points clear at the top of the League One table? We'll see you later.